So we get a lot of emails about spouses. One has a dream, one's not sure if they're part of the dream. And Julie and I, we've been traveling for well over 4 years now, full time. But we decided that we would take off and see the world together, years and years before we actually pulled the ripcord.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't surprise us to get the type of email we're getting. Actually, we've probably gotten a half dozen emails like this over the last 4 years. And we actually just had a comment in our Facebook group, Born Julie Travel, today from one of our new members talking about their spouse trying to get on board with the dream.
Right. It's very difficult because if one wants to do it and the other doesn't, that's what we're going to discuss. Just how difficult is that?
So, Julie, go ahead and read the email from our viewer, and we'll put it up on the screen here.
Hi, Warren and Julie. Or in Australia, you would be referred to as Waz and Jules. I had a few questions about slow traveling and semi-retirement. My wife's 46. She's a teacher, and I'm 48, working as a graphic designer. We almost own our home in Melbourne outright and have no other debt. I've been toying with the idea of selling our home and moving the proceeds to dividend capital growth portfolio of ETFs and living off the returns for the next 10 years or so before our pension and our other superannuation kicks in at 65. I could work part-time remotely for my current employer, and we could also live on our investment returns. We have 3 children, all adults, and 2 granddaughters here in Melbourne. My wife likes the idea of traveling more, but she doesn't know how she would cope without seeing our children as often as we do. Do you have any advice of our situation? Is selling our home a bad idea? Cheers, Ray.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack. Ray, thank you for the email. And it doesn't matter if you're Australian, doesn't matter if you're from New Zealand or Africa or Asia. I think it comes down to first off, the most important thing if you're a couple looking at moving abroad, the most important thing for your retirement is your relationship. If you're single, you don't have the same thing there, but your significant other, your spouse, whatever, that's the team. You have to figure that out. You cannot have one dragging the other out to make this successful. We've seen people try to do that, and it did not go well.
Can actually give a real life example. No names involved, but we know some people that this was a dream. It was a dream for 4 years. Unfortunately, I think it was a dream for one of them more than the other. They made it all the way to Europe. They did a whole lot of expensive things coming here, getting a dog here. There was a lot involved. And unfortunately, one of them missed the children a little too much. And it was too much for her, and they left.
I don't even know if they made it 3 months, and it was all kinds of life-changing things they did. So you both have to be 100% on board. It can't be 100% and 75%. You have to both be all in, heart and soul. Now, first off, this was my dream to travel before it was Julie's. Yet, when it came time for us to break things down and to get ready to leave, I had the harder time. I was having a very difficult time with letting go of possessions, and
I had no trouble. I'm a minimalist, and I had no trouble whatsoever. I could easily give up everything, and I did.
Yeah, we took a lot of photos of things and saved photos electronically. We put a couple very large boxes of very important keepsakes over in Julie's parents' house in Louisiana, up in their attic. So we're hoping no hurricanes come, but they're taking care of that stuff anyhow. So so we have some of our most important items still in safekeeping. From the financial aspect, it doesn't sound as though there's questions about their financial situation here.
No, not at all.
But the question was, do they keep the house? It really depends on your, how deep your pockets are. But if you can get a rental income from there, and you want to test drive for a year and see if you can rent your house out or keep it without anybody living there, or whatever, that's something you can look at. But it can be a source of income. You don't necessarily have to let it go. especially if you don't have a mortgage or and you're not laying money out on it, and you're not financially bound by it.
Right.
Some of you may decide that, you know, the house is part of your income and retirement plan. So in that event, that's up to you to decide whether or not you want to obtain income from renting your home or selling it and drawing down dividends and not having that anchor. And I think a lot of it just comes down to sentimentality. I mean, I'm much more sentimental than Julie.
Yeah,
And
that's very true.
you know, I miss my son, and I'm not going to say otherwise. And but he's been able to come out and visit with us
3 times thus far,
Yeah.
3 different countries. We,
Yeah.
you know, we're very blessed. He's a wonderful kid, and you know, we speak to him very often. We communicate via text, FaceTime, WhatsApp, everything. So that's the key, is that if you can imagine yourself, say you live in Oregon and your son lives in Florida, how often are you going to see that child? So if you're already used to that kind of thing, you will probably, you know, thrive pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Montenegro, and this is our home base. So as we're traveling, in today's modern world, it's not going to take us very much longer to rush to somewhere from Montenegro than it would be to get across the United States. I mean, maybe it's going to take us an extra 7 to 10 hours, but we can go jump on a plane. We can get a connection from here into Istanbul to Rome, and then a direct flight back to the States, and then another leg somewhere else. So it's, you know, some people are like, well, how can you leave your family behind? Well, if you're living in Arizona and your family's in New York, it's not going to be that much of a difference. But you know, you're just going to cross the Atlantic and the continent of Europe instead of the whole continent of North America.
That's correct.
In a nutshell, and I think, Julie, you agree with me on this, that you cannot start this full-time travel
On different pages.
Yes. You're doing the right thing. Take some smaller trips, a couple months, 3 months, whatever. See how you feel. See what the separation is like. And if you're both happy with it, then move forward.
Well, and I think something that should be said is that this email chain continued, and it has come to where this gentleman has decided, between he and his wife, that they're going to take some smaller trips. They're going to go to Indonesia from Melbourne, Florida. Oh, sorry. They're going to go to Indonesia.
Let's go ahead and read what he said. So we let Ray know that we are going to go ahead and use him as an example.
And he was perfectly happy about it, and actually he thought it was a great idea. So he wrote back and said, "Thanks so much for your response. Reading your words of wisdom and experience is very helpful. This will be a topic of conversation over the next few months as my wife and I explore our options. My wife is also considering remote work in an indigenous community in Central Australia, where her sister is located. I've just returned from Bandung, Indonesia, where I spent 2 weeks volunteering with social and community workers. That experience really made me question why I'm working so hard to accumulate wealth for retirement, particularly when I have the resources to slow down and do more of what brings me joy now. I'm meeting with my brother-in-law to talk about how I'm feeling. He lived in London for 12 years, and he's returned recently to Australia to live on the coast in a sleepy holiday town." We then went on to let him know that this email had inspired us and that we were actually going to bring this up. And he gave us his graces. He said, it sounds like you need to give the people what they want.
Yes.
I'm happy for you to use our example as real world numbers. We're young grandparents, so this must come up a lot. Our house is worth about $1 million Australian. We have a trip planned for New Zealand next month, and we'll try to get back to Indonesia later this year. Once Kate finishes her full-time teaching position in 6 weeks, we may start to plan some other adventures for next year. My current employer has an office in Vietnam, so that will be high on the list.
Yeah. So to me, they're doing the right thing. They're working through it the right way.
Absolutely.
Julie and I did it similarly. We took a lot of exploratory trips to see what it was like.
Well, I think something we can say is we had a very strong, very, very strong relationship with my son right before we left. He would call me sometimes upwards of 3 times a day. I scheduled all of his doctor visits, anything he had going on in his life.
I watched football with him and drank a beer.
And so really what we did, Warren and I discussed it, and we decided to go to Ecuador. And our reasons for that were...
Julie's reason for this.
It was much closer. I could get to him within 4.5 hours flight versus in Europe, we're looking at 20 plus. Now, did we really have to do that? No. But it was a comfort for me. And we did it for 10 months. And you know, little by little, he and I, we reduced how much communication we had, but we've still remained very close.
I love this example because it was right through COVID, so she couldn't have went back anyway.
Yeah, well, that's true. But anyway, that is another thing that you and your spouse could consider with your children, is to maybe not go as far. So for us, we lived in Florida, and a flight from Fort Lauderdale to Guayaquil was only 4 hours, and most of them were direct. So really and truly, it was quite easy for us to comprehend and be able to make that jump.
So we're glad that you guys joined us today to have this important conversation. Hopefully it gives some sort of insight and answers to you about what might be going through your mind, and
what you can do, how you can solve
what kind of steps you might want to take. So as a reminder, we're traveling with our 2 dogs, and we're trying to see what it's like to live in different places. This is our home base in Montenegro, and we hope you're going to subscribe if this is your first time watching, and that you'll give this video a like, share it with somebody that might want to listen to this. And until next time, have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Ciao.